We have always been told that baptism washes away original sin. And for 40 years, I've tried to wrap my little brain around that. I never quite could figure out what that means. I was baptized, guessing you were too. Yet looking at my life, it did not take away, by any means, my temptation. And it didn't keep me from doing bad things. Well before original sin, we were an original blessing. Well before anything like original sin began, for millions and millions, billions of years, everything was an original blessing. Look at that little girl. Cynthia, could you stand and show us that little full face? Who could think of anything but just that she is an original blessing? She is gift and goodness beyond words. It's why I can't wait to scoop these little ones up and hold them on Sundays when they come and join us. It's such a blessing to be so close to that goodness, this pure blessing. Take a look, that's a photo op of an original blessing. This is perfect innocence. The word innocent, from its Latin root, means not wounded. Not wounded. That's how we all start life. We're all, each of us, innocent. It doesn't have anything to do with what's moral right or moral wrong. It has to do with not being wounded yet. We start out, you and I, unwounded. Father Thomas Merton, that monk that became really famous a few years back, wrote about this state of being for all of us when he wrote, "From the beginning, there is in all of us an inexhaustible sweetness and purity, a silence that is a fount of action and joy. It rises up in wordless gentleness and flows out to us from the unseen roots of all created being, welcoming me tenderly, saluting me with indescribable humility. This is at once my own being, my own nature, and the gift of my Creator's creation, a mysterious unity and integrity." That is true. And that's how we all began. But as true as that is, it doesn't take long. It doesn't take long before that little bundle of innocence that is Ruby Louise gets wounded. It's every parent's nightmare. Yet, you and I both know that no one gets through this world without being wounded. It emerges as we become socialized, as we learn how to live in the world. We are born into a wounded and wounding world. We are born into a wounded and wounding world. What we call original sin is a result of living and of forgetfulness. As I learn from others, from my family, my society, and from the era in which I live, I tend to lose touch with the light I was born with. It becomes obscured. We start so innocent, but that holy innocence gets killed by power and abuse. Remember the story of Herod just after the birth of Jesus. In his jealousy that his power was threatened, he went out and had the firstborn innocent child slaughtered of every family in the hopes of killing Jesus. The death of holy innocence. It's an archetypal image of what eventually happens to all of us. Probably it has to happen, actually, if we're going to ever grow up. We cannot stay as pure and as innocent as that little girl. We cannot stay unwounded. We have to leave the garden, so to speak, that original blessing now buried deep inside. And it's this movement out and back between loneliness and desperation that becomes my own false self, moving towards that fullness of what has been there from the beginning, my own true self. It's almost like that original goodness, that blessing, that innocence goes underground, becomes invisible, hidden within. And when we get too far out from that original blessing, we can lose ourselves. We can lose ourselves into all kinds of addiction, and we begin to see ourselves only as that false self. The images we have of ourselves, the images we want everybody else to have of us, and our own sense that we're no good and we're compromised and we're divided and we're lost. And this, my friends, this is where baptism comes in. What will keep us from forgetting that true self? What will help us trust that we are good just as we are, no matter what we've ever done, and whole, and that there's still that original innocence in us? We are baptized into a bigger story than ourselves, the Jesus story. And we are baptized into community, into each other, into this people that keep that story alive in the world. We are given 100,000 small mirrors everywhere who will make it easier to believe in that big goodness. And the most beautiful mirror of all among them is Jesus. The mirror that is Jesus showing us ourselves. This child today is given those mirrors for the rest of her life. Baptism, though, my friends, is not just about that little girl. Baptism is as much tonight for us here around her to see what is our responsibility to these little ones. To remember to be about building a world around her that lives up to the character of Jesus. The character of Jesus as it's set out in this 5th chapter from Matthew that we've been hearing last Sunday and again tonight, that describes what the character of these people in this new world that Jesus came to bring about would look like. To be actively involved in not using people. To not be ruled by our rages. A world where people are faithful to each other and honest. A world where people will go the extra mile for each other. And where forgiveness no matter what, is readily available. And those hurts that fill the world, the hurts that have led to so much separation and division, where they can be healed. And we can be reconnected in love again. And if that's the world you and I are committing to building around her, if that's the world we're a building around her, the reign of God will be hers and every other child's in this world. And one more thing. It's about teaching them how to pray. That we're not just teaching them the words of a prayer like an Our Father or a Hail Mary, or the words we pray around her when she comes to Mass. Not just telling her how to pray, but showing her that we pray. That those aren't just words for us, that we fall through those words into a deep, underground, unending spring of divine love when we say them. That we come through those prayers to connect to that creative source of the blessing we are. To the God who is just so good. It will bring her back again and again every time she prays, as surely as it can you and me, to that intrinsic union that never died. It just got buried. Yes, I love baptizing babies, because it reminds me of my responsibility to build that kind of world around them. I love baptizing babies because I want them to have the advantage in life. The advantage of life that is each of us around them. I want them to have the advantage of a community of seekers and a community of people who seek to be disciples of this Jesus, who kept his story alive in every age. I want her to have that advantage in her life, because you and I have had that advantage in our life. Whether we take it for granted or we don't even notice it, it's the truth. We've had that singular advantage. So that when the wounds come to her and to any of us ever again, and they will, she will not forget who she is. Nor will we. We won't forget that we were originally innocents and original blessing.